All right, let's dive into something I think we all think we get, but probably don't. Love. We're going deep, deep, deep into what actually makes love tick, how our culture kind of messes with our love lives, and maybe, just maybe, how to do this whole love thing a little better.
It's so fascinating. We're not just like skimming the surface of romance here. We're going into the nitty-gritty. We've got sources like Coral Herrera Gómez's blog and book, some wisdom from like Erich Fromm. He's like the love guru.
From, okay. Big name, big in the love department.
Huge. He basically broke down love into like its core elements, like a recipe for a rock solid relationship. We'll get into all that. But first, what really struck you about Gomez's take on love?
Well, she compares love to a garden,
Okay.
which I thought was like pretty cool. I mean, who doesn't love a good garden metaphor?
Right.
But she's not talking about like those perfectly manicured Instagram, worthy gardens. She's talking about the real deal, the one that needs like constant weeding, watering, all that.
Yes.
Not so glamorous stuff.
Exactly. It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Right.
It's a dynamic process. Needs tending
Yeah.
from both sides.
Okay.
Just like a garden, if you neglect it,
Yeah.
things start to wilt and eventually,
Right.
the whole thing falls apart.
So it's not just about, finding the right person.
Mhm.
It's about like the work you put in together.
Absolutely. And that work starts, from the moment you meet, like Fromm calls these early stages, that's sort of the evaluation period.
Oh, okay.
Like, think about those first dates and all that effort we put in to, like, show our best selves.
Oh, yeah.
Basically sizing each other up,
Yeah.
deciding if we're compatible.
Yeah, so all those fancy dinners, the thoughtful gifts, that's not just romance.
Yeah.
It's like a compatibility test.
Totally. And it ties into, like, that basic human need for connection.
Yeah.
Where we're wired to, like, seek out companionship. Those early gestures, they're part of that dance. But here's the thing. Real love, the kind that lasts,
Uh-huh.
it actually starts when the honeymoon phase kind of fades.
Wait, so all the excitement, the butterflies,
Yeah.
that's not real love.
Well, it's a part of it, but it's not the whole story. I mean, you can't run on butterflies forever.
Right.
Eventually, you have to build something more substantial.
Yeah.
And Gomez, she has this really interesting concept called the love contract.
Okay.
It's about having those sometimes like uncomfortable but totally necessary conversations about expectations, boundaries, and individual freedom within the relationship.
A love contract. So it's like laying down the law for love. That sounds kind of unromantic, no?
Not at all. It's about ensuring mutual respect and understanding. It's about creating a space where both partners feel safe and empowered to be themselves. Like Fromm would call this having respect for the other person's individuality.
Okay, so it's like finding that sweet spot
Mm-hmm.
between like being totally smitten
Yeah,
and, not losing yourself in the process.
exactly. It's about merging those two worlds
Yeah.
in a way that feels, authentic, sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
and a love contract. Even if it's not like a formal document,
Right.
it can help with that.
Okay.
It forces you to address those potentially tricky issues early on.
So how do you even like go about creating this love contract? Do you like sit down with a lawyer or something?
Haha. Well, it doesn't have to be that formal.
Okay.
It's more about having open and honest communication.
Right.
It's about being willing to discuss those things that many couples avoid talking about.
Like what?
Expectations around finances,
Okay.
household responsibility,
Uh-huh.
personal goals and aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure you're both on the same page.
So it's like premarital counseling, but like for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about proactively addressing potential issues before they become,
Yeah.
major problems.
This is getting like real deep, real fast.
Yeah.
But I love it. So we've got the garden analogy, we've got the love contract,
Yeah.
this whole idea of a compatibility test phase. What else has like grabbed your attention?
Well, this is where it gets a bit tricky.
Okay.
Gomez argues that a lot of our ideas about love, they come from what she calls the romantic myth. It's basically this like fairy tale version of love that we see in movies and books.
Okay.
The idea that there's one perfect person out there for everyone, and that love conquers all.
Ooh, so like The Notebook and all those classic romantic comedies.
Exactly. But Gomez points out that this myth can be really damaging, especially for women. It sets up these unrealistic expectations
Yeah.
and can blind us to red flags and unhealthy patterns in relationships.
So we're all being brainwashed by Hollywood.
Well, it's not just Hollywood.
All
It's
right.
it's everywhere. It's in songs, it's in books, it's in advertising.
Right.
It's woven into the fabric of our culture, and it can lead to people staying in relationships that
Yeah.
aren't serving them simply because they're holding on to
Yeah.
this fairy tale ideal.
Okay, so ditch the fairy tale and get real about love.
Exactly, and that's where Fromm comes in. He stressed the importance of realism in love. He believed that true love requires seeing the other person for who they truly are,
Yeah.
flaws and accepting them
Yeah.
unconditionally.
Okay, so no more rose-colored glasses.
Right? It's about embracing the complexities and the challenges of love, while also recognizing the incredible joy and fulfillment that it can bring.
This is also fascinating. I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
We are.
Yeah.
We are, but before we dive any deeper, um, I'm curious. What are your initial thoughts on all this?
Well, I'm starting to like see how much I've bought into this romantic myth without even realizing it. And this whole like love contract thing.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely like making me rethink,
Mm,
how I approach relationships.
that's great. It's all about awareness.
Absolutely. But before we lose our listeners and all this deep thinking, I think it's time to unpack Fromm's famous four elements of love.
Let's do it. That's where the real magic happens.
Okay, so we talked about love as a garden, ditching the fairy tale, even signing a love contract. But let's get to the like heart of the matter. What are those four elements of love that Fromm talks about?
Well, Fromm, he believed that care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge, these are the cornerstones of a truly loving relationship. Think of them as like the essential nutrients that keep the garden of love flourishing.
Okay, that makes sense. But I got to be honest, those words sound a little
Yeah,
textbooky. Can you break it down for us like regular folks?
absolutely. Let's start with care. It's pretty straightforward. It's about nurturing the other person's well-being. It's about those, everyday acts of kindness, empathy, and support. It's about, showing up for your partner, both emotionally and practically.
So it's not just about like grand gestures.
Right.
It's about the small,
Yes,
consistent actions.
exactly. It's about making your partner feel um, loved and valued
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The little things, like making them a cup of coffee in the morning,
Right.
listening to them vent about their day, or simply offering a hug when they need it.
Okay, I can see how that's important. What about responsibility? Isn't that like just about paying the bills and doing chores?
Well, that's certainly a part of it,
Yeah.
but responsibility in the context of love, it goes much deeper. It's about being accountable for your actions and choices within the relationship.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the impact your words and behaviors have on your partner.
So it's about taking ownership of your stuff.
Yes,
No more blaming your partner for your own bad mood.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that you have a role to play in creating a healthy
Yeah.
and harmonious relationship. It's about being willing to, apologize when you're wrong and to work together to resolve conflicts.
Okay, so care is about nurturing, responsibility is about uh, owning up to your actions.
Yes.
What about respect? We kind of touched on that with the love contract, right?
Right. Respect is all about honoring the other person's individuality. It's about recognizing and accepting their unique perspective, even if it differs from your own.
Yeah.
It's about valuing their opinions, allowing them the space to be themselves without judgment.
So it's about like letting your partner have, their own hobbies and interests, even even if you don't share them.
Precisely. It's about understanding that you don't have to be like carbon copies of each other
Right.
to have a strong and fulfilling relationship. In fact, those differences can actually enrich the relationship and bring new perspectives.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. But what about knowledge? I thought we were talking about love, not a pop quiz.
Well, knowledge in this context isn't just about facts and figures.
Right.
It's about deeply understanding your partner on an emotional level. It's about knowing their dreams, fears,
Okay.
aspirations, vulnerabilities.
So like knowing their love language, their favorite color and what makes them tick.
Yes, but it's also about paying attention to those nonverbal cues, their body language, their tone of voice. It's about being attuned to their emotional state and responding with empathy and compassion.
Wow. That's deep. It sounds like it takes a lot of effort to truly like know someone on that level.
It does, but it's an ongoing process, and it's one of the most rewarding aspects of a loving relationship. The more you know your partner, the more you can appreciate them for the complex
Yeah.
and fascinating individual they are.
I'm starting to see how these four elements kind of like weave together and you can't really like have one without the others, right?
Absolutely, they're all interconnected
Yeah.
and interdependent. Think about it.
Yeah.
If you truly uh, care for someone,
Uh-huh.
you're naturally going to take responsibility for your actions,
Hmm.
respect their individuality, and seek to understand them on a deeper level.
Okay, this is all starting to click. But I'm curious, how does all of this relate to that romantic myth we were talking about earlier?
Hmm.
Aren't those fairy tale ideals like kind of at odds with these more grounded elements of love?
That's a great question. The romantic myth, it often sets us up for disappointment because it focuses on those initial stages of love, the passion, the excitement, the feeling of being swept off your feet.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always account for the long haul,
Right.
the commitment, the compromise, the everyday work of maintaining a healthy and fulfilling relationship.
So the myth kind of like glosses over the less glamorous parts of love.
Exactly. It paints this picture of effortless bliss
Yeah.
where conflict never arises and both partners are, always perfectly in sync.
Right, right.
But that's simply,
Yeah.
not realistic.
Yeah.
Real love requires a willingness to work through challenges, to communicate effectively and to grow together as individuals.
So how do we break free from the grip of this romantic myth? How do we start seeing love for what it truly is? A beautiful, messy,
Yeah.
and ultimately rewarding journey.
Well, I think awareness is the first step.
Okay.
Once we recognize the ways in which these cultural narratives are shaping our expectations,
Right.
we can start to challenge them. We can start to question those unrealistic ideals
Mm-hmm.
and embrace a more grounded and authentic approach to love.
So it's about unlearning those fairy tale tropes and rewriting our own love stories, so to speak.
Exactly, and that's where Fromm's four elements come in.
Yeah.
They provide a framework for building a love that is based on mutual respect, responsibility,
Uh-huh.
care, and deep understanding. They remind us that love is not a passive experience.
Right.
It's an active choice that we make every single day.
So it's not about finding the perfect person. It's about choosing to love the person you're with, flaws and all.
Exactly, and it's about recognizing that love is not a destination.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the ups and downs, the
Mhm.
challenges and triumphs, and growing together through it all.
This is so insightful. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what real love is all about, but I'm
Hmm.
also like realizing that I have a lot of work to do to break free from those fairy tale expectations.
We all do. But the good news is it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah.
And the more we understand about love, the more we can create relationships that are truly fulfilling and meaningful.
Okay, before we get too lost in our own thoughts, I think it's time to shift gears a bit
Yeah.
and talk about how this whole love thing plays out in the real world. I mean, we've talked a lot about the theory, but how do these ideas actually apply to our everyday lives?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll delve into next.
All right, my brain is officially full, like full of love theories.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, how do we like actually put all this wisdom to work, you know? How do we take those four elements, the care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge, and make them work in our messy real life relationships?
Well, it starts with recognizing that love isn't, a spectator sport.
Right.
It's not something that just happens to us. It's something we actively create and cultivate day by day.
Okay, so we can't just like sit around waiting for Prince Charming to show up with a glass slipper.
Ha ha, not quite. Remember that romantic myth we talked about? It's time to ditch those fairy tale expectations and get real about the work involved.
So less Cinderella, more elbow grease.
Exactly. Think about those four elements like tools in a gardener's kit.
Yeah.
You need to use them regularly to keep the garden of love thriving.
Okay, I'm getting the analogy.
Yeah.
Can you give me some concrete examples? Like how do we actually care more effectively in a relationship?
Well, it's about being present, attentive to your partner's needs. It's about actively listening to them, empathizing with their struggles and celebrating their successes. It's about making those small everyday gestures that show you're thinking of them.
So less grand romantic gestures and more like doing the dishes without being asked.
Exactly. It's those little acts of service that can actually speak volumes. It's
Yeah.
about, showing your partner that you see them, hear them, value them.
Okay, I can see how that builds like trust and intimacy.
Right.
What about responsibility? How does that play out in a relationship?
It's about owning your part in the relationship dynamics. It's about being accountable for your words and actions and understanding how they impact your partner.
So no more blaming the other person when things go wrong.
Right. It's about recognizing that you have a role to play in both the good times and the bad. It's about being willing to, apologize when you've messed up and working together to find solutions when conflicts arise.
Okay, ownership and accountability. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
What about respect? How do we practice that in a way that goes beyond like just being polite?
Well, respect is about truly valuing your partner for who they are, even if they don't always agree with you or do things your way.
Yeah.
It's about allowing them the space to be themselves, to have their own opinions, and to pursue their own interests.
So it's about letting go of the need to like control or change your partner.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that they are a separate individual with their own thoughts, feelings, and desires, and that's something to be celebrated, not stifled.
That makes sense. It's about fostering an environment of mutual respect,
Yeah,
where both partners feel safe and empowered to be themselves.
precisely. And that brings us to knowledge. This is about going beyond the surface level and truly understanding your partner on a deeper level. It's about knowing their hopes, dreams, fears, and vulnerabilities.
So it's like about being a good listener and paying attention to the little things.
Yes, but it's also about asking questions, being curious about their inner world, and being willing to be vulnerable yourself. It's about creating a space where you can both share your deepest thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment.
Wow, this is all so powerful. But I have to admit it can feel a bit daunting. Like where do you even start?
Well, I think the first step is simply being aware of these elements and making a conscious effort to incorporate them into your relationship. It's about making small changes one day at a time. It's about, choosing to be more present, more communicative, and more intentional in your interactions with your partner.
So it's not about like some grand overhaul. It's about those small, consistent actions that add up over time.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to have those, sometimes difficult conversations with your partner. Talk about these four elements. Share what you've learned. See if there are areas where you can both grow and improve together.
That's a great point. It's about approaching love as a team effort, not a solo mission. But I'm curious, what about these larger cultural forces that we talked about earlier, the ones that can sometimes make it feel like, we're swimming against the tide when it comes to building healthy relationships.
Right. Gomez reminds us that we don't exist in a vacuum. Our views on love are heavily influenced by the society we live in, the media we consume, and the messages we've internalized throughout our lives.
So how do we navigate those external pressures while also like staying true to our own values and desires?
Well, it's about developing a critical lens. It's about questioning those societal norms and expectations that don't serve us.
Hmm.
It's about recognizing the ways in which the romantic myth can distort our perceptions and lead us down unhealthy paths.
So we need to become more like discerning consumers of love stories, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of the messages we're absorbing from movies, music, and social media. It's about choosing to surround ourselves with positive and realistic portrayals of love and relationships.
That's a great reminder. But what about those systemic issues that can sometimes make it feel like the odds are stacked against us, like the pressure to conform to certain gender roles or the lack of support for working parents.
Those are valid concerns, and that's where Gomez's call for a love revolution comes in. It's about recognizing that personal transformation is only part of the equation.
Right.
We also need to advocate for social change.
So it's about using our voices and our actions to create a world that is more supportive of healthy and equitable relationships.
Exactly. It's about challenging those structures and systems that perpetuate inequality and make it harder for people to love and thrive.
Wow, this is a lot to process. It's like we've gone from tending our own little garden of love to envisioning a whole new landscape for how we relate to each other as a society.
That's the power of these ideas. They challenge us to think bigger, to act more intentionally, and to create a world where love is not just a fleeting emotion, but a force for positive change.
Well, I think we've officially given our listeners enough to ponder for one episode. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Remember, love is a journey, not a destination. It's a continuous process of learning, growing, and evolving. Be patient with yourself, be kind to your partner, and never stop cultivating the garden of your love.
And with that beautiful sentiment, we'll leave you to tend to your own love gardens. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the complexities and wonders of love.